Okay, I think we can get started. Bit more of an intimate crowd than previous town halls. I think it might be we're at a different time. Um, we're doing this a couple of hours earlier because we have some Australians joining us, and we wanted to make sure that the time was as reasonable as possible for them. But yeah, welcome everyone. So this town hall, the agenda will be to well, first up, we're going to do a roundup of what's gone down in the forums, what proposals are active, will be going to a vote soon, etc. Then I'll be doing a presentation on PIP 26, the foundation proposal. The goal with that is I did a presentation on this alongside the other foundation people last Thursday at the State of the Union, and we want to make sure that anyone that wasn't able to go to the State of the Union can see the same content essentially, and also has the opportunity to ask questions. So that's we're going to do this presentation, and then we'll have a lot of time dedicated to an AMA for anyone that has any questions about the proposal. So yeah, so the first thing we'll get into is the governance roundup. We have one proposal that's currently which is also governance, and it's got 1 day left with 13 approvals and 0 rejections. So it's looking pretty strong to pass. We have Zatar on the call today. I had asked him to give a little update on or a little recap on what GRIP is for those of you who are out of the loop. So, Zatar, are you good to go?
Yeah, I'm good to go. Can you hear me okay? Hello?
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So get going. Yeah, I'm assuming everybody can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So I've been told that I have 5 minutes, so I won't be telling any jokes. GRIP stands for Group to Review and Improve Proposals. It has a double purpose. One, make it easier to submit proposals and thereby widen community involvement in building Pocket Network. And 2, improve voting and increase voter participation by making proposals clearer and thereby enhance governance. Currently, some contributors might be intimidated by the proposal submission process. Maybe they're first timers, or maybe they lack confidence for some other reason. By making the proposal process easier, it's hoped that new contributors will onboard. Now, GRIP consists of a team of technical and economic specialists, an editor, and a graphic artist. Our members represent a wide cross-section of the Pocket community. There's no more than one specialist from any one entity. Other community members will be able to join GRIP if they establish the requisite expertise, skill, and knowledge, and if GRIP team members vouch for them. And we hope to maintain this state of broad representativeness throughout and going forward. Now, the GRIP proposal stipulates that within 24 hours of the end of voting, that is by 4 p.m. this Friday, a new category called pre-proposals will launch in the forum under the governance heading. The pre-proposal category is where most of GRIP's work will take place. Anyone who has an idea for a proposal and wants to check what the community thinks about it can raise it in the new pre-proposal category. Or when a contributor has an outline or draft proposal ready, he or she can post it in the pre-proposal category. Now, to be clear, any member of the Pocket community can review the idea or draft proposal and provide feedback. Yeah, so for technical proposals, alongside or following wider community review, the technical
Now recording.
for technical proposals alongside or following wider community review. The technical specialists will provide their input. They'll look for issues that need fixing. And the idea is that being able to turn to a specialist for feedback will nurture contributions of a technical nature for growing Pocket Network. Same applies to proposals of an economic nature. Some contributors might shy away from publishing a draft proposal in the forum for everybody to see, or they may want to get feedback on an idea before going public. Now, while we want community members to share their ideas and work openly, we recognize that some people will initially want to get input in private. So there will be an option for contributors to consult GRIP privately. However, GRIP will encourage any such contributors to switch as soon as possible to open dialogue. GRIP will also make it easier to create proposals by helping contributors determine what size budget is appropriate. And one of our first projects will be to prepare a guide on how to prepare a proposal. And I'll be working on that with Ramiro, who's on this call from PocketScan. GRIP is also designed to improve voting and increase voter turnout by making proposals clearer and easier to understand. For complex technical proposals, GRIP will offer to make a lay-friendly version that the entire community can comprehend. The team might create infographics also to make proposals easier to understand. Voters who are confused by a complex or even poorly drafted proposal might refrain from voting. A voter who understands a proposal is more likely to cast a vote. Plus, if the proposal is clear, voting will be better informed. So that's the idea as far as enhancing governance goes and the voting connection. Now, posting drafts to the pre-proposal category will be optional, but we recommend and encourage it. This will avoid situations where proposals evolve continually after they've been formally launched, which leads to confusion. Now, GRIP is for a 3-month trial period. If we see that some changes will make it better, these will be part of the follow-up proposal for renewal of GRIP. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Zatar. Good timing. I just fixed my audio. I didn't hear most of that, but yeah, it sounded great at the end, and I hope everyone was able to get back in the loop on GRIP. Does anyone have any quick questions about GRIP?
Hey, it's Dermot. I think I'm just keen to see how it evolves. Really, I think it's a clear problem, and I think there's a really good group that Tatar, yourself, and Steve and others have kind of put together. So I think thinking of those kind of that's something I'm keen on as well. I think we as a community can try and set some defaults or expectations, but I think it'd be interesting to see how you guys set some standards on reporting and accountability and then learn. I think it's pretty key that we start really learning quicker. And spreading some of these kind of good practices across the kind of the community more readily. So I think it's a great start and kind of looking to see how it develops. Of course, I think you saw on the forum I mentioned some questions around kind of compensation going forward and like how membership flows in and out. But I think these can be kind of questions that will resolve as you guys proceed and get down to work.
Thanks, Dermot. Your input has been very helpful.
Okie dokie. Well, yeah, GRIP has 1 day left of voting. So if you do have a vote, make sure to go up and vote on that. As far as other proposals in the forum, we have about 5 or 6. We've got Part 25 still being actively debated. It's probably the longest standing proposal up there. This proposal is to apply non-linearity to stake weighting that PIP 22 introduced. We have PEP 46, which is a request for Pocket to fund a DApp referral program. PUP 26, which is a new set of parameters to punish bad validators more. PUP 27, a proposal to raise the ceiling of the stake rating from 60K to 75K. And then PUP 28, a proposal to increase max validators from 1,000 to 2,000. So these are 5 proposals I've listed. If you are, you can still participate in discussions about those proposals, even if you don't have a vote. So take a look at them in the forum and make your voice heard. Also, if anyone is an author of one of these proposals and would like to talk about it in the next town hall, to do a presentation, to do a Q&A, etc., please let myself or Moaz know, and we'll be able to make that happen. So the next part of this call is to do a presentation on the foundation proposal, which is the 6th one that's in the forum. I've had to jump into Discord on my phone, so I won't be able to actually screen share. I can't be in both on both my phone and my laptop at the same time. So what I've done is I've exported a PDF of the slides, which I'm going to upload into this channel here, and you all can follow along. That was the best that I could do at short notice. It is uploading right now. There we go. Okie dokie. So we can get in. Is everyone able to download it on their end? Okay.
Yeah, no issues here. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Okie dokie. So I'll just get in without doing the screen share. You can follow along. So yeah, PIP 26, Foundation for the Future. So before we dive into what this proposal outlines, I'm going to provide an update on the original purpose of the foundation. Why did we design the foundation in the first place? What structure did we design? And then also looking at, okay, the ecosystem.
To you.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello?
You want everything on the.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, sorry, we've got someone needs muted. Okay, thanks whoever that was. Okay. So yeah, we're going to look at the original purpose and design of the foundation. We're going to touch on how why we feel the ecosystem has evolved to the point that we need a new foundation, and then we're going to outline what does this new foundation look like in our eyes, and then lastly, what changes need to be made. What are the formal changes that this proposal is proposing to enable this to happen? So the original purpose of the foundation is was to be a lean entity that would simply represent the DAO. So we wanted a minimal structure that was essentially just a meat space wrapper for the DAO that would carry out the DAO's wishes through governance transactions. And it would also be able to do other less crypto-centric things like forming legal contracts with third parties that the DAO wants to contract with, holding non-pocket assets on behalf of the DAO. We are a single-purpose blockchain. We don't have the ability for the DAO to directly custody ERC20s and whatnot. So another example of this would be the foundation having a multi-sig that holds funds on behalf of the DAO. And then all of the open source IP that Pocket relies on, the protocol as an example, is actually, it belongs to the DAO, and the foundation custodies that on the DAO's behalf and would be able to help to enforce that IP if the DAO so decided. So in order to make the foundation truly accountable to the DAO, we had to design a structure of checks and balances. We've got someone else unmuted here. And so this structure was designed, it was built on top of a structure that was created in 2017 in the Cayman Islands. They changed their laws a little bit, and enabling a foundation to exist that is ownerless, meaning there are no members and therefore no one who has a last right to the assets of the foundation. If the foundation were to be wound down, those assets would belong to the DAO and not to any specific people that might have been a member. We also have a system of checks and balances that we added on top of this ownerless foundation structure by tweaking the articles slightly. These include the fact that the directors and the supervisors who are responsible for carrying out the foundation's actions, the directors do the day-to-day business. The supervisors simply monitor the directors and make sure that the directors are honoring the word of the DAO. These actors can all be appointed and removed by the DAO. If the DAO elects to remove or to appoint a new director, the supervisor has to carry this out on behalf of the DAO. And if the DAO decides to appoint or remove a supervisor, the directors have to carry this out on behalf of the DAO. So we have a nice system of checks and balances here. The supervisor is a pretty neutral entity, so they're not doing day-to-day. They don't really need to understand Pocket at all, really. They're just administrators that enforce local Cayman rules and the articles. That's why in our proposal we have listed someone who is local to Cayman and is very experienced with this type of structure, and not necessarily super knowledgeable about Pocket. With this system of checks and balances, we intend that this would enable the foundation to be a credibly neutral entity, credibly meaning that all of the incentives are in place and the power structures are in place to make it impossible for the foundation not to be neutral and not to be accountable to the DAO, because the DAO has the ultimate control over the foundation. This should enable the foundation to be an entity that can focus on ensuring that there's a level playing field for all of the ecosystem. It should be easier to rely upon the foundation than it has been to rely on a private Delaware company like Pocket Network Incorporated or any other entities that we might form. And yeah, this last point is structural changes to the foundation. So that includes appointments and removals, but it can also include amendments to the articles or anything like that. Also need to be approved by the DAO. The directors and the supervisors can't unilaterally make changes. So we have this amazing structure in place. We have this amazing foundation, pardon the pun. What is changing and why do we feel that the foundation needs to evolve? So the foundation was incorporated in April 2020, so 2.5 years ago now. And at the time, P&I was the only contributor to Pocket. It was that way for quite a while, and we've been very fortunate in the last year or two to see a massive ecosystem exploding all over across a wide range of activities. I've listed some pictures here. There are some contributors that I haven't put on this slide, mainly because they don't have a picture or a logo. I think for Pocket Blade, it would have been a dog profile picture, and I felt most people wouldn't recognize that. But yeah, we're very lucky to have such a strong ecosystem. And we've observed over the last year some friction points where there's a tension between the needs of these ecosystem members and the priorities of Pocket Network Incorporated, the Delaware company whose top priority has been building out the protocol, building out key tooling like the portal, and growing relays on the network. We've realized that we need an independent, altruistic entity whose focus is the ecosystem, nothing else. There's also a lot of these support activities we feel fail to the tragedy of the commons. No one wants to do them because there's no incentive to do them, so they fall by the wayside. And the difference with the foundation would be that it would have a duty to serve, and the people on the foundation would be that would be their job. They would be being paid to play this role facilitator of the ecosystem. So that's the context that we feel leads into a decision to evolve the foundation. What does evolving the foundation look like? So first up, we took a step back and the foundation is an independent entity from Pocket Network Incorporated. It's going to be doing a whole different set of work streams, and it has a different purpose, which prompted us to go back to the drawing board and take a fresh look at what the foundation can be. It's essentially it's kind of like a startup within the ecosystem. It's a new organization. We're going to be defining a lot of new systems. So we wanted to make sure that we're defining this in a way that will achieve the foundation's purpose as best as possible, with no baggage carried over from time spent working within P&I, which myself, Ben, Moez, and Dan have been doing. Dan more recently. So the mission that we've currently defined for the foundation, and by the way, a lot of this is hot off the press and work in progress. So some of this will evolve, and this will all be published on foundation websites and so on. So you'll be able to see how it evolves over time. We've defined the mission of the foundation specifically being to grow Pocket Network into a hyperstructure. This is a new term that we've observed emerging in crypto. And essentially it means a public good protocol that is non-extractive, unstoppable, permissionless, and as a result of all of these characteristics, creates positive sum value for everyone. We feel that this already defines what Pocket seeks to be. Pocket is not perfect on all of these characteristics. We have a permissionless supply side, but we don't have a permissionless demand side, as an example. But we see it being the foundation's mission to help Pocket get there, because we feel once Pocket gets there, then it will take on a life of its own, and it will be less reliant on teams like the foundation and P&I to succeed. The role of the foundation in pursuing this mission has a lot of parts. I'll just go over these, and then if anyone has any questions on specific roles, then you can ask during the AMA portion. The first being to nurture Pocket's values. So what this means is Pocket has a set of values that are outlined in the DAO Constitution, as well as a set of values that aren't very well defined. They may be implicit, and we may need to do a better job of making them more explicit for newcomers to the ecosystem. The foundation would see it as their personal responsibility to help the community to continue to refine the values, to make those values explicit and to reinforce them. We'd also see it as their personal responsibility to advocate for Pocket stakeholders. So this would mean always being available to listen to stakeholders. This would mean in listening to stakeholders to identify key issues that need to be addressed, to track these and to amplify these to contributors who might be able to solve them, and providing stakeholders with a platform to be heard in things like this town hall format. As a subset of stakeholders, we have contributors. These are in many ways the catalyst for realizing that the foundation is needed. The foundation would see it as their personal responsibility to support these contributors with their personal development and to unblock them from creating value. It would be kind of like an evolved version of an HR function, but more DAO centric and suitable for the Pocket ecosystem. Obviously, facilitating Pocket's governance is pretty self-explanatory. This is something that our team has already been doing. We would also have the help of new teams like Grip. So I think that role will evolve as we push responsibilities out to the ecosystem and scale in that fashion. I already mentioned that the foundation custodies Pocket's IP. These are many of Pocket's public goods, and the foundation would be responsible for protecting their integrity. yeah, we also want to connect Pocket's community. We have a really strong community, and it could use it could be even better with more investment, more support. We have a community team that sits on Pocket Network Incorporated, led by Ming. The foundation will also be working with Ming and working with community leaders like Poctopus to help to connect our community that we have here, facilitate meaningful relationships between community members and reduce coordination costs. Representing the DAO is pretty self-explanatory. I already outlined how the foundation does that. The foundation would continue to do that with the goal to eventually disintermediate itself by helping Pocket to become a hyperstructure. And then these last 2 points are a more strategic role of maintaining a thesis for Pocket success, attracting opportunities that we see helping to achieve that thesis, and then investing in those opportunities. So the foundation will have a grants program separate from the DAO's grant program. It will support strategic initiatives to try that are high leverage for the long-term success of the Pocket ecosystem. And then on the flip side, it's taking a look at Pocket's attack vectors, making sure that we have a grasp of all of them, and working proactively to neutralize them. Whether that's making sure that the DAO's checks and balances are reinforced, or working to eliminate central points of failure, including the foundation itself as a DAO representative, or working to enhance security with contributors. We will also be playing this role with we have defined some key philosophies that we'll be operating with and also looking to promote in the wider ecosystem. These philosophies that we feel are conducive to playing the role that was outlined the most effective way possible. So I've emphasized the gardening, not gatekeeping philosophy with some more details. But I'll also expand a little bit on some of the other philosophies. We had to kind of skip over some of these last Thursday at the State of the Union, but we have a bit more time to expand upon it here. So gardening, not gatekeeping. What this means is that our focus is going to be on helping the wider ecosystem to grow, giving opportunities to all of the contributors in the ecosystem. Sorry, we've got some white noise here. Give me a second. Here we go. That should be fine. So yeah, we want to focus on giving opportunities to contributors in the ecosystem, not on taking those opportunities for ourselves and growing the reliance on the foundation. We don't want to be a gatekeeper for opportunities. We want everything to be localized. Similarly, we want to be available to everyone. We don't want to create an ecosystem where you need to know people in order to actually get an audience with the foundation. We will be having open office hours that anyone will be able to use to schedule a call with anyone on the foundation to share any of their concerns, any issues that they have that they feel the foundation should be aware of. And yeah, and we feel that the same principles should be applied to the wider ecosystem as well. Empowering, not entitling. This means we don't want to make anyone else into a gatekeeper either. We want to empower everyone to be able to work on the same opportunities and to rise to the top based on merit. This requires a level playing field. This requires, as much as possible, not granting exclusive rights to do something to specific groups. This is, as an example, this was a point that we ironed out with the GRIP team. We wanted everyone to be able to do pre-proposal support. So that's why we have a public pre-proposal category. We want everyone to be able to play that role. Clarifying, not controlling means if there are strategic decisions, if there are things that the DAO needs to decide on, the foundation should be seeking to clarify. If it has a stance on a decision, the foundation should be seeking to clarify the context that leads to that stance, so that everyone can get on the same page in terms of understanding the problem and aligning, and everyone can consent to certain paths that we want to go down. We don't want to be in an ecosystem where leadership in the ecosystem is saying, just trust us, we need to do this, fall in line, etc., etc. That's not the path that we would be going down. Partnering, not parenting. This means working side by side with everyone as peers. We don't see the foundation as being part of a hierarchy, part of a formal hierarchy. We want to be maintaining a feedback loop with everyone, having a conversation about issues, making sure that we're understanding everyone's perspectives, and that everyone is understanding everyone else's perspectives, so that everyone can work side by side and not exercise power to try and get things done. And then lastly, this may seem surprising because conviction is always a good thing to have. What this last point means is essentially we wouldn't want conviction to a fault. There will be a thesis for the future of Pocket, for the direction that leads to our success as an ecosystem, but that won't be stubbornly held. There will be evolution over time, but while still providing sort of directional consistency and still playing the role of being a long-term stable presence for the wider ecosystem. So with that sort of philosophy and those roles in mind, we also have some preliminary roadmap items for the next few months. Again, this is subject to evolve a lot, and the roadmap itself will be published and updated in real time, so everyone will be able to follow along. But the simple sort of preliminary items is, obviously, we want to launch the foundation. This proposal, if approved, would allow us to take steps forwards to launching this new version of the foundation and just getting to work on a lot of these responsibilities. We also are aware that the governance structure in general is a bit opaque for a lot of people, so it's a top priority to clarify the governance structure, the governance process, and the vision for the DAO. This includes updating the DAO's trophies. It's been a point of contention for a while now that the trophies don't include everyone. We want to improve the proposal process itself. GRIP is a great first step in that direction. And yeah, we want to give a bit more clarity into where we see the DAO going in the long run, new technologies that we can adopt, etc. These technologies include socialware and trustware that we would be looking to adopt in Q1 to help scale the DAO more and to help streamline some of the experiences, in particular the whole trophy claiming experience. We also want to update the communication platforms that we're using. Those are overdue for an upgrade. And then lastly, we would want to be starting our grants program as well. The team on the foundation initially will be myself, Jackal. We'll have Nelson, who is already a director on the foundation, and we'll be appointing Dermot as a director of the foundation. Campbell Law, as I had mentioned, is a Cayman Islands resident. He has a lot of experience. He was head of Goldman Sachs Cayman division. He's been a director or supervisor of dozens of foundations. So he's more than experienced to help make sure that we're following the rules of the jurisdiction. We'd have Ben B3M moving over to the foundation from PNI to be head of DAO talent. And he would be the one really working with contributors and making sure that we're supporting as much as possible. And then we'd have Moez and Dan also moving over from PNI to the foundation. The proposal is in a forum. There's a QR code to take you there directly. And it's really simple. The last two slides here outline what the changes, the actual formal changes that the proposal is making are. We need to appoint and remove some directors. So currently Stefan Gosselin is the director of PNF. He's not able to fulfill the operational duties anymore, especially with the foundation becoming a lot more active. So we need to remove him. We want to appoint Dermot in his stead as a director of the foundation. We want to appoint me as a director of the foundation, and this would also coincide with me leaving PNI as well. And then we want to remove PNI or Michael as PNI's representative from the role of supervisor and replace him with a neutral Cayman residing person, Campbell Law. We also, there's a couple of amendments that we want to make to the articles as well. As an aside, when in these changes, whenever spending is referenced, whenever remuneration is referenced, it's important to note that this involves the foundation's treasury only. The foundation's treasury is completely separate from the DAO's treasury. It remains the case that DAO treasury grants can only be made by a PEP. So when we talk about the directors being able to make spending decisions, this is only the foundation's treasury. So the article amendments are essentially in two categories. First, we want to unblock standard compensation for anyone working for the foundation. So that means empowering the directors to make those salary decisions without having to go to the DAO every time to ask for approval. To ensure that the directors are not overspending, we want to publish quarterly salary figures. We want to allow for pocket grants for anyone working for the foundation, and we want to remove the cap on compensation. The cap itself was put in place when it was assumed that the foundation would be minimal and that people would only be playing a very laissez-faire part-time role. And then the last category is preserving the operational continuity of the foundation. Right now, the directors don't have the ability to appoint temporary directors in place when an existing director either resigns or is removed by the DAO. This is problematic. It can cause the foundation to be unable to move forward on certain things that require a certain number of signers and so on. And we also are increasing the approval threshold for changes to be a 2/3 supermajority in the DAO, just to ensure that the DAO itself has more consensus on changes before those changes can be made. So I've rambled long enough. This is an overview of the foundation proposal, and I think now we're good to open it up to Q&A. If you have any questions about anything that I outlined, you can either post a message into the community call channel here, or you can request to be unmuted so that you can speak as well. Thanks, everyone. Got someone typing? Okay, no questions. Thanks, Big Boss.
Jack, if there isn't any immediate questions on the proposal, maybe it could be interesting to reframe the questions as more on, I guess, for some of the people who weren't at the meeting in Tampa on Thursday, just kind of some of the problems that they see in the DAO as of today, just so we can kind of even get a general feeling for some people in the community on some of the problems they see and some of the priorities we're facing. Obviously, we've set out a roadmap, but this will ultimately be done in consultation with the community going forward.
Yeah. No, that would be a good idea if we find a lull period to get people's feedback on what the top problems that should be solved are. We do actually have some questions here though from Zatar. If you want to speak, Zatar, you should be able to still unmute yourself because you still have those permissions from before.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Let's add a couple questions. What's the source of funds that are available to the foundation?
So the foundation has funding from Genesis. I'm looking up a chart for you. At Genesis, the foundation was allocated funds, much like the DAO itself and PNI. So it still has some of that. And then the foundation would be able to, if it was playing an effective role, it would be able to ask the DAO for more Pocket as well. So I'm just posting a chart here in the chat. We have PNF reserves in the bottom left. You can see here. So the foundation did have reserves at Genesis, and it still has a chunk of those reserves. And then if the foundation felt that we needed more Pocket, we would be able to ask the DAO for a grant. Nelson, do you have more specific numbers you'd be able to share? Yeah, and we've got a similar question here from Shane. Where does the foundation current funding come from? And will its future funding entirely be based on DAO grants? So I've explained where it comes from, and to the last part of that question, yes. As it stands, future funding would be entirely based on DAO grants. In the future, as the ecosystem is growing, the foundation would be able to sell some of its Pocket to raise cash and manage its treasury like that. It would obviously do so very carefully using market makers and so as not to disrupt the market. You see other examples like this in other crypto ecosystems, like the Ethereum Foundation. Ethereum Foundation is pretty well capitalized because it has sold ETH to raise stables, to raise cash. The foundation would be able to manage its treasury in the same way. To Steve's question, there is not currently an operating budget. This is part of launching the foundation. A lot of this would be prepared and would be published by the end of the year. We're starting to define our operating systems now, and part of that is defining our budgeting and whatnot. Hey Nelson, we've got another question here about how much is in the coffers right now. Would you be able to share a rough number there?
Sorry, I think I was trying to talk, but I was muted. Yeah, so I think just to add to Jack's point, the goal here is to keep the foundation fairly lean. We wouldn't be looking to scale this up to a huge organization, but definitely more operational than it's been to date. In terms of how much is in the coffers right now, the rough number is around 4.1 million split across stables and POCT. I guess just to add to that, the foundation, some of the funds have already been spent in terms of basically grants to P&I for development work of key sort of tooling for the ecosystem. So some of that will go towards some grants to P&I to develop a few different pieces. But we do have, around 4.1 million. And that's at current prices, so obviously that's subject to change.
And then, do we have any follow-up questions about what Nelson described there? Excellent. And then we have another question here. Oh, by the way, I just want to say as an aside, Nelson had said we still have some outstanding payments that are attributed to P&I. The foundation has historically been paying P&I for services from cash that the foundation itself has raised in the past. And in the long run, the idea is that P&I is working to become more self-sufficient, and then a higher proportion of the foundation's funds would be going to other actors in the ecosystem instead. We have a question from Steve here. Would all of the roles be full-time? No, they wouldn't all be full-time. So part of the reason why I would be named executive director, not just director, is I would be the only full-time director, essentially playing managing the day-to-day operations. And then Dermot and Nelson would both be part-time directors, although it has to be said, they would be a lot more active than the average director is on a crypto foundation. We are going to be a more active foundation. So yeah, they will be part-time, but it will be a more active role than you typically see. And then
I can jump in here to give a bit more color, Jack, as well, I guess, on the expectations I've been given, I guess, Nelson, probably similar. Yeah, because I guess a typical foundation style role in the crypto ecosystem is usually 2 or 3 days a month max, sometimes less than that. I think in this regard, there's just a lot of work to be done. And for me, I've stepped down from Eden Block, and one of the reasons I did so is I'd actually have opportunities like this to work directly with teams that I really care about, to unblock them on points around governance and community building and so on and so forth. So yeah, so the kind of expectation is around 2 or 3 days a week, and I think that will flex up and down. But I think for the next 6 to 12 months at least, that's what it's likely to be. And then I guess there's the understanding that that's around that point, once kind of everything's kind of bootstrapped and hopefully a bit more sustainable in terms of the workload and kind of the systems we have in place, the idea to maybe bring on 1 or 2 more directors, or a kind of just to kind of basically refresh and kind of examine where we've got to and what's missing. But definitely, I think the key thing is to try and keep everything lean as much as possible, and not to hire for the sake of it. So that means we'll be doing as much as we can ourselves.
To Zatar's question about why there would be corporations acting for Dermot or Jack, so it's not really acting for. It's more there's a few reasons why it's desirable for us to form an LLC or an S corp that's solely owned by us, and then to contract through this. From my own perspective, doing it this way allows me to participate in DAO benefits platforms like Opolis, where I can actually I can get my health insurance that way. If I'm contracting directly as an individual, I don't have opportunities like that. So it's really just a personal preference for the person, whether it's health insurance, tax planning, etc. That's the only reason, and these would be solely owned by myself and by Dermot. I think if anyone ever tried to appoint in their place a corporation that contained other people, then that would be a subversion of the actual appointment that was approved, and wouldn't be permissible. But yeah, it's really just like an S corp is just basically a pass-through entity. It's no different from me contracting directly, other than unlocking health insurance and stuff. To Steve's question, would budgets be approved or voted on by the DAO voters? No, they would not. The foundation's budgets would not be approved or voted on. The foundation has the ability to manage its own day-to-day affairs on the ground, and that is desirable, because they're the ones you're essentially delegating that sort of day-to-day management responsibility to the directors. That said, though, the directors are going to be publishing those budgets, publishing that spend, and the DAO is going to be able to keep the directors in check, making sure that the foundation actually has ROI for the ecosystem as a whole. Zatar asked about 2/3 supermajority being needed. Is that 2/3 of all eligible DAO voters? So we don't have a quorum. We feel a quorum is undesirable because as the DAO scales, it can become hard to actually achieve a quorum and to actually get anything done. So this would be a 2/3 supermajority of anyone that votes on the proposal. The thesis is that if a proposal is serious enough and is given enough attention and amplification, we shouldn't have voter turnout issues. But yeah, the 2/3 supermajority just makes it for those that actually participate in the vote, makes the requirement that there's a slightly higher threshold for approval.
I can maybe add to Steve's point on if the financials will be ordered by a third party. Look, I mean, we haven't worked everything out, but I think at this stage the plan would be to keep most of it on chain. So we could definitely make the foundation gnosis and perhaps the primary pocket addresses available to the community so that people can track this real time. We may need some fiat for for practical reason. Things like lawyers and stuff don't always accept stables. So yeah, we may need to have some amount in the bank account that we have, but we'd be keeping that minimum. So yeah, at some point we could perhaps do an audit, but I think if it's a very small amount of fiat, it's probably not as necessary. We'd prefer to just keep as much as we can public and on chain.
But yeah, Nelson, speaking directly, that the foundation and the directors have a legal mandate to do so, have to publish annual accounts, and that they'll be prepared by a third-party accountant. And there already is a local accounting firm, I understand, who helps with that, which is pretty basic because I guess there's been very little done to date. But yeah, going forward, whether we actually have an official audit on top of that, kind of what an accountancy firm typically does for filing accountants for kind of small companies remains to be seen. But yeah, I think having an audit to give extra anything we can do to give additional legitimacy and kind of accountability to the community is relevant, which is why we've agreed to the quarterly updates in terms of the I guess the general spending, and that's going to be in the articles, and the kind of directors are mandated again to make sure the company is complying with those articles. So yeah, I guess the backstop is of course the legal and criminal liabilities applying to directors. It's not just the nons in a DAO with a kind of a small kind of multi-sig wallet like we have. We're fully doxed and KYC'd via the foundation.
Yeah, and quarterly transparency reports are pretty gold standard. Many foundations in crypto do biannual or annual. We're going to be holding ourselves to more frequent updates. And yeah, to Nelson's point, just in case anyone didn't catch it, with the reference to the Gnosis, most of the foundation's funds are either in Pocket or in stable coins, which are held in a Gnosis safe multi-sig. That means we'd be able to actually provide the foundation's addresses so that those could be monitored on chain by anyone. So that's why auditing may not be necessary as long as we're keeping the amount of money that we convert to fiat from the stables minimal. To Zatar's point, director remuneration would be set by the directors, as would the remuneration of any officers of the foundation, anyone working for the foundation like Ben, Moez, Dan, or anyone else that ends up being contracted to the foundation. These are some great questions, by the way. I really appreciate the attention to detail. Yeah, it would be any decision that the directors are making would be majority vote. So if we had more directors, it wouldn't be 2 out of 3. It would be whatever that majority ends up being for the given number of directors that we have. Yeah, there is a mechanism. I covered it. If you have the PDF, it's on the 3rd slide. The DAO has the power to appoint and remove both directors and supervisors. Both the directors and supervisors. There's an article in there saying that directors and supervisors must, to the best of their abilities and subject to law, etc., carry out any DAO resolutions. And then there's other clauses saying that supervisors appoint and remove directors, and supervisors are not allowed to appoint or remove a director without a corresponding DAO resolution. And then the same on the flip side, directors appoint and remove supervisors, but are not allowed to do so without a corresponding DAO resolution. One of the changes that we're proposing is, rather than simply being a DAO resolution, which would be a majority, we want to make it a super majority. So rather than a 50% approval from all participating voters, it would be a 66%. Sorry, 60. Yeah, no, 66%, not 67, 66. Yep. And if you look at the, if you read the proposal itself, I've gone a bit more in detail in terms of pasting in the actual clauses that are relevant there as well. So you can take a look there. It's quite unusual, I have to say, by the way, for DAOs to be able to control the foundation structures. They're often treated as independent entities. So this really is an innovation in crypto. And the main reason that we have this check and balance in place is because the foundation is playing that role as the representative of the DAO. Both on-chain in terms of submitting governance transactions, but also off-chain in terms of contracting with third parties and holding assets and so on. That's the main reason why the DAO has the ability to appoint and remove directors. Yep. I think you must have been muted when you had some background noise going on. Okay, you're good to speak, Zatar.
Okay, it's just easier to speak than type it all out. So regarding these supermajorities that are going to be needed to for the DAO to vote in or out directors, that will necessitate some kind of change to the legislation or that governs the foundation or the articles or the DAO, and is that part of what this proposal entails doing?
Yep. Let me link you to exactly where that change is outlined. I'm going to post a link in the Discord.
Yeah, sorry if I missed it.
No worries. So essentially what we're doing, I've linked you to the specification that outlines the amendments. What we're doing is we're clarifying. Right now, the definition of a DAO resolution, which is what the directors and supervisors are compelled to carry out, is simply that it's a resolution validly passed on the DAO by the participants of the DAO. What we would be doing is clarifying the definition of a DAO resolution to require a 50% majority. So DAO resolution shall mean a resolution validly passed by at least 50% of DAO participants who voted on the resolution. We would be adding a new definition of a supermajority DAO resolution, which would be, again, the same exact wording, but it would be by at least 66% of DAO participants who voted on the resolution. This is in the foundation articles, by the way, not the DAO constitution or anything like that. And it doesn't require any changes to snapshot or anything. And then what we would be doing is there's a series of amendments that we outline immediately after this definition, which essentially state that it references the supermajority DAO resolution when it comes to changes to the structure of the foundation, appointing, removing directors, etc. And what this essentially means is for the supervisor to remove a director, or for the director to remove the supervisor, or to appoint either, it would require at least 66% approval from everyone who voted on the proposal.
Among the DAO, not the foundation.
Yeah, among the DAO. So
will
your
this
GRIP
proposal
currently has 100%. It would be 66%. Yep.
And will passage of PIP 26 require a 2/3 supermajority vote?
No, because those amendments haven't been made yet. So PIP 26 is subject to the existing rules.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate all your answers.
No problem. Thanks everyone for all the questions, especially Zatar and Steve. You guys have the attention to detail that I love, so I really appreciate it. If anyone has any other questions at any point, then feel free to reply to the proposal with those questions. We'll be keeping an eye to see if anyone has any questions in there. And if there is a desire to have another AMA, then share that desire, and if there's enough interest, we'll potentially do another AMA. Yeah, Dermot needs to drop off in a couple of minutes, but I'm happy to stay on as long as people have the need for with questions. Zatar, when will this go up for a vote? It's going to be another few weeks. It's quite a significant change, so I want to give people the chance to, and there's a lot of text here. I want to give people a chance to review it and ask questions before we put it up for a vote. I'm looking at, I think the goal was 2 weeks from now to put it to a vote. So early December, first week of December. But yeah, if there's still like back and forth, still questions that need to be asked and answered, then we would extend that timeline. It'll take as long as we need for people to feel like their questions have been addressed. And then if the timeline is that it's going to vote in first week of December, then we would be aiming by the end of the year or first couple of weeks of January to have a lot more of the operational stuff published. We would have a new Pocket Foundation website. We'd have a public roadmap. We would have the office hour links, all of those pieces that are required for us to be operational and to be playing the role that we outlined. Although we are already working towards setting those up in anticipation of the proposal being passed, just so that to save a little bit of time, if it does end up being passed. Okie dokie. I'm not seeing anyone typing, so it looks like we might have exhausted all the questions. Thanks again, Zatar.
Thanks for the questions, everyone.
Yeah, great. Thanks all.
Yep. If there's no more questions, we can probably just wrap up here. Have a great day, everyone.
Perfect. Cheers all.